Child Killers Part 12. William Cornick. Anne Maguire was a Spanish teacher in England who was sadly murdered on the 28th of April 2014. She was 61 years old at the time. Who killed her? 15-year-old William Cornick. So William admitted to psychiatrists that he had actually been planning to murder her. He had a really big grudge against his teacher, and this was apparently due to the fact that she banned him from going on a class trip because he hadn't completed his homework. He even put a Facebook message out to his friends to kill her for £10. So what actually happened? Like for part 2. Also guys, make sure you follow me on Instagram at Gabby Hashem. If you have anything you want to talk to me about, just DM me. And if you have any stories or anything or just want to say hello, I reply to everyone. Love you guys. Child Killers Part 12. This is the second video of the child killer William Cornick. So on the 28th of April, William attended school and classes as normal. So after morning break, he went to his classroom where the Spanish lesson would be taking place. Halfway through, he decided to get up and stab Anne 7 times. He stabbed her in the neck and the back with a knife. Mind you, this was in front of his entire class. He chased her to the corridor where another teacher ran and helped her. She then put her into another room and held the door shut so William couldn't get in. He then went back to the class and talked to his friend as normal. He had also brought a bottle of whiskey to celebrate killing his teacher. He also admitted he wanted to kill 2 other teachers. He was then arrested by police. Following his arrest, he admitted to police that he didn't give a crap about the impact of his gruesome crime. He was sentenced to life behind bars.
Welcome to Crime TikTok. Today we're going to talk about children who have killed. In this video, we're going to focus on the 11-year-old girl Mary Flora Bell. Many believe that she wouldn't have stopped killing if she wasn't arrested. The first child who was murdered by Mary was 4-year-old Martin Brown. He was found on the floor of an abandoned house by a group of boys that were playing in the area. Blood and saliva were dropping down his cheek. Soon after, these young boys saw Mary and her best friend Norma coming towards the house. However, during the investigation, the police found no evidence of foul play and left his cause of death as open. This was also because they found an empty bottle of aspirin nearby the body. A few weeks later, another boy's body was found. It was 3-year-old Brian Howe. He was strangled to death. He was found in an industrial area of the town and he had been mutilated on the thighs and genital. And the pair of scissors which were used were right next to him. The letter M was also carved with a razor on his belly. Mary stood out as suspicious to the police because she was happy about the murder. And she got caught.
This is the case of Joshua Powell. In 2001, he would marry Susan Cox. Josh and Susan had lived with Josh's father, Stephen, for some time. Stephen would become absolutely infatuated with Susan. He used mirrors to spy on her in the bathroom. He used camcorders to record her. He stole her underwear from the laundry. In 2003, Jeff's father, Stephen, declared his love for Susan, which then prompted Jeff and Susan to move out of state. Jeff and Susan would go on to have 2 boys. After some time, Jeff had become very controlling of Susan. She was also upset that he was still in contact with his father even though he was continuing his infatuation with Susan even out of state. They also argued over the fact that Jeff never attended church services with her. It got to a point where Susan made a will, and in her will she wrote, "I want it documented that there's extreme turmoil in our marriage, and if I die, even if it looks like an accident, it's not." On December 6, 2009, Susan would attend a church service with her 2 boys. Then one of their neighbors would go to visit them after church. The neighbor left the house about 5 p.m., and that's the last time anyone ever saw Susan. The entire family was actually reported missing on December 7th, 2009. Susan didn't show up for work on December 7th, and her purse, her wallet, everything was still at the house. They would later find her cell phone in the family minivan. At around 5 p.m. on December 7th, Josh would return home with the 2 boys, saying that they were out camping. Police went to the campsite he said he was at, but they found no sign of any campsite being there. There were also blizzard conditions going on, so they found it kind of odd he would take them camping at that time. They searched the Powell home and they would find traces of Susan's blood in the house. They discovered a life insurance policy, of course, for $1.5 million on Susan, and a handwritten note written by Susan herself that would express fears for her life. A little while later, investigators would find out that Josh liquidated Susan's accounts, canceled all of her appointments, which investigators obviously found a little strange. In 2012, they interviewed one of the boys, Charlie, and he actually confirmed the camping trip took place. But he said, "Mommy was there with us, but she didn't come home with us." The other boy had driven a picture of a white van with Mommy in the trunk. So Jeff became a major person of interest. He was given supervised visits with the two boys, and on February 5th, 2012, a social worker would call 911 saying that Josh grabbed the boys and wouldn't let her come in. And moments later, Joshua Powell blew up the house with him and his two boys inside. Josh had contacted his family prior to say goodbye, but there was no time to save anyone. Susan is still missing, but presumed dead.
Child Killers Part 11. The Richardson Family Murders Part 1. On the 23rd of April 2006, 3 of the Richardson family were murdered in Canada. Who killed them? Their 12-year-old daughter Jasmine and a 23-year-old boyfriend Jeremy Steinke. I don't know if I pronounced his name correctly, I'm sorry. Mark and Deborah, who were Jasmine's parents, were found in the basement. The body of their son Tyler, who was only 8 years old, and Jasmine's younger brother, was found blood-soaked in his bed. Initially, they believed that Jasmine was a victim of this crime. Either she was kidnapped or she was possibly hidden somewhere else. However, the next day she was arrested with her boyfriend, and both were charged with all 3 murders. But why would this 12-year-old Jasmine kill her family? The reason was that her parents did not want her and her boyfriend to date, as he was 11 years older than her. This relationship was also illegal. She was a child. Child Killers Part 11. The Richardson Murders Part 2. So Jasmine and her 23-year-old boyfriend plotted to take out her family. Jeremy killed her parents in the basement, whilst Jasmine killed her own brother and slit his throat in his room. There was also evidence that they committed this murder through emails. Also, shortly after her arrest, Jeremy proposed to her and she said yes. So who was this Jeremy guy? So this is 23-year-old Jeremy, and he insisted that he was a 300-year-old werewolf. He also told his friends he really liked the taste of blood and wore a vial around his neck. He also had an account on vampirefreaks.com. And Jasmine also had an account. However, they met at a punk rock concert in 2006. Before Jasmine met Jeremy, she was considered to be a lot different. She was happy and social. However, that once changed when she met him and started dating him. Child Killers Part 11. This is the third and final part of the Richardson family murder. So once Jasmine had met Jeremy, she was instantly attracted to the goth lifestyle and look. She changed her makeup drastically and she looked a lot older. They fell in love and they both became obsessed with each other. And sadly, they both insisted that the only way to be together was to kill her family. Something that is also creepy, before they committed the murders, they watched Natural Born Killers. It's a film about a young couple who goes on a killing spree. Jeremy had also told his friends that he and his girlfriend had plans to kill her family, but no one really took this seriously. There are reports that have said, Jeremy also said to an undercover cop, "You ever watched the movie Natural Born Killers? I think that's the best love story of all time." So Jasmine actually was released from a 10-year stay at a psychiatric hospital in 2011. And Jeremy is currently serving a life sentence. What do you guys think about this case?
Let's talk about India's youngest and most infamous serial killer, Amarjeet Sada. He was only 8 years old when he struck. He preyed on children, and his first victim was his sister, who was only 8 months old. Shortly after murdering her, Amarjeet struck again, murdering his 6-month-old cousin. Even more chilling is that the family and villagers knew about these murders but chose to stay silent. They deemed the killings as internal family issues, not realizing that Amarjeet would soon strike and murder someone outside of his family. In 2007, Junjun Devi, the mother of a 6-month-old baby girl, left her daughter at the school daycare to do her chores. When she returned, she found found her child was missing. When the news spread, people feared the worst, and since they knew about Amarjeet's past, they confronted him. After being questioned, Amarjeet showed no remorse. He gleefully told the villagers about how he strangled the child to death and then led them to a shallow grave where she was buried. He told them he killed her by beating her with a brick. He then buried her with debris and grass that was around the area and went back home after she was dead. He was arrested for the murder of Khushbu Devi after his confession. Unfortunately, since the family covered up the first two murders, Amarjeet wasn't found guilty of them. Despite this, he was questioned about how he attacked his victims and why. Instead of providing these details, he looked at the police, smiled, and asked if they could give him some more biscuits. He showed no remorse, and whenever the police tried to ask him about the crimes, he would stop talking and smile. Superintendent Amit Lodha ordered that the case be looked at from a psychological perspective. Patna-based psychoanalyst Shamshad Hussain looked into the case and found that the child lacked remorse and enjoyed inflicting pain on others, making him a true psychopath. It also seemed that he had a brain issue which led to a chemical imbalance. This in turn led to increased gratification from inflicting pain on others. He was diagnosed with a conduct disorder that was claimed to be hereditary. This led him to commit acts of violence because he had no sense of right or wrong. Amarjeet was tried, and according to India's laws, it's speculated that he was sentenced to serve 3 years in juvenile prison since children can't serve more. It's also speculated that due to his mental state and the extreme threat he posed to society, that he was placed in a mental institution after he served his time. Amarjeet's whereabouts are currently unknown. However, in 2015, he contacted the Post-Mortem Post. He claimed he was in a children's facility where he would be till he turned 18. Since he would be over 20 now, if his claim is valid, he'd be allowed to leave the facility. It's unclear whether he'll go on to commit more crimes or if he was successfully treated. Some people speculate that Amarjeet wasn't the original culprit and that he was framed for the murders. The nature of the crimes and the elaborate hiding spots were too much to have been committed by an 8-year-old child. Despite this theory, the fact that he was excited to reveal what he did and his reaction when he was questioned, it seems that Amarjeet Sada was in fact India's youngest serial killer.
Eric M. Smith is an American criminal who murdered a 4-year-old boy named Derek Robbie at just 13 years old. Eric Smith was often tormented by bullies for his ears, glasses, red hair, and freckles. Eric lured Robbie to a remote location in a park, strangled him, beat him with rocks, and sodomized him. 2 days after Robbie's funeral, Eric admitted to killing the little boy. In 1994, Eric was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to the maximum term then available for juvenile murderers, a minimum of 9 years to life in prison. He still remains in prison to this day.